She took something for a sore throat, collapsed minutes later, dead before she reached the hospital. Hours later, a man died in his home, then his brother, then his wife. 7 people in total. Different towns, different lives. The only thing they had in common was the pill. No one saw it coming.
7 people were murdered. Each one died after taking Tylenol that had been laced with cyanide poisoning.
Tylenol was everywhere. By 1982, it was the most trusted name in pain relief. Hospitals used it, parents stocked it. The brand outsold aspirin 5-1. It wasn't just medicine, it was routine. And someone used that trust to kill. The victims weren't connected. They didn't shop at the same stores. They didn't share symptoms. They just died. Fast. Behind the scenes, health officials scrambled. Executives went silent, and the press was closing in. No one could explain the pattern, not yet. But something inside those bottles had changed. What followed wasn't sabotage in the factory. It wasn't a bad batch. It was something far worse. And it started when one girl woke up with a sore throat. She was 12 years old. Her name was Mary Kellerman. On the morning of September 29, 1982, 12-year-old Mary Kellerman woke up feeling sick. Her parents gave her Tylenol to ease what they assumed was a cold. Minutes later, she collapsed in the bathroom. By the time they reached the hospital, she was already unresponsive. Doctors tried everything: oxygen, cardiac support, advanced life-saving measures, but her body was already shutting down. No bleeding, no infection, no visible cause, just silence. By morning, she was gone. Doctors couldn't explain it. No trauma, no warning. That same day, 27-year-old Adam Janus took something for mild chest pain. He collapsed in his home and died shortly after. The cause seemed cardiac until his family arrived to grieve. His younger brother, Stanley, and Stanley's wife, Teresa, each took a capsule from the same bottle, still sitting on the counter. Both were dead within hours. 3 deaths, 1 house, no explanation. Adam's young niece watched it unfold from the living room, one family member after another collapsing with no warning. Police sealed off the home. At first, they suspected carbon monoxide, then a gas leak, but the answer was right there, on the counter, in plain sight. No one realized it. Not yet. In another suburb, Mary McFarland collapsed in her office break room. A flight attendant named Paula Prince was found in her apartment. The bathroom light was still on, and the Tylenol bottle was still in the bag. She hadn't even put it away. 7 victims in total, scattered across the Chicago area. Different lives, different locations, one thing in common. No one had been followed. No one had been chosen. The killer didn't need to know your name. They just needed you to take the pill. At first, nothing made sense. 1 death could be a tragedy, 2 a coincidence. But when 3 people died in the same house, within hours of each other, everything changed. Local police flagged it to the Cook County Medical Examiner. The case escalated quickly. Within 48 hours, the Illinois Department of Public Health, the FDA, and the CDC were all involved. Each agency had a theory, none of them fit. These people weren't connected. They hadn't traveled, they hadn't eaten the same food, or taken the same flight. They only had one thing in common: what they took. Dr. Edmund Donahue was on call at the medical examiner's office. After reviewing the Janus family deaths, he ordered urgent toxicology. The results shocked everyone: cyanide. Lab tests confirmed it in the blood, potassium cyanide in industrial quantities, the kind used in mining and metalwork. A single dose could shut down the body in minutes. Cyanide doesn't just stop the heart, it starves the cells of oxygen. The blood keeps flowing, the heart keeps beating, but the body suffocates from the inside out. Victims lose consciousness almost instantly. Death comes fast. Investigators collected Tylenol bottles from the victims' homes, but the cause still wasn't clear until they looked closer at the supply chain. The contaminated bottles hadn't come from one place. They'd been manufactured in different cities, packaged at other facilities, and shipped through separate routes. No common supplier, no shared batch. This didn't happen during production, it happened after the bottles hit the shelves. One case made that undeniable. When police searched Paula Prince's apartment, they found the Tylenol bottle in the shopping bag next to the receipt. It looked untouched, sealed, brand new, but inside, one capsule had been poisoned, tampered with, resealed, put back like nothing had ever happened. That discovery ended all doubt. It wasn't a factory flaw, it wasn't a bad batch, it was murder. The FDA and FBI mobilized, so did the local police. Agents visited stores across the Chicago area, collecting inventory and checking lot numbers by hand. Retailers began pulling Tylenol themselves. Some stores taped handwritten warnings to the doors, others refused to open at all. Television crews filmed outside drugstores. Journalists interviewed parents holding bags of returned medicine. The fear was instant, and it spread faster than the poison ever could. There were no answers, no suspects, just one question. How many bottles were still out there? A targeted recall began in the Chicago area, but within days, more tampered bottles were discovered. Then came the threats. The copycats started almost immediately. Hoaxers phoned in warnings, others mailed letters. Some claimed to have poisoned soda cans, cough syrup, baby food, eye drops. Most were false alarms, but they did the damage anyway. Public hotlines were overwhelmed. Pharmacies cleared entire aisles, not just of Tylenol, but anything in a bottle. In less than a week, consumer confidence collapsed. This wasn't just about Tylenol anymore. It was about everything on the shelf, everything in the cabinet. How do you stop a killer you can't trace? How do you protect a product that's already been opened? How do you calm a country that now sees danger in something as simple as a pill? There was no answer, just chaos. And for the company at the center of it, the worst was still coming. Inside Johnson & Johnson, the panic was immediate and spreading. For the first time in its history, the brand's future felt fragile, and at the center of it was CEO James Burke. Some executives urged silence, others pushed to limit the damage, but Burke gave one instruction: tell the truth, be honest, trust the public. Within 48 hours, the company launched a 24-hour consumer hotline. They issued direct alerts to hospitals, pharmacists, and distributors, and printed full-page warnings in every major newspaper. They didn't wait for a government order. On October 5th, Johnson & Johnson voluntarily recalled every bottle of Tylenol capsules nationwide. 31 million units pulled in days. The cost was over $100 million in product losses, and the company's stock price plunged. Initially, some feared they wouldn't recover, but Burke didn't blink. He appeared on television, 60 Minutes, Donahue, and local news interviews, not to dodge or spin, but to take responsibility. He explained what the company knew, what it didn't, and what it was doing to restore safety. Meanwhile, Johnson & Johnson engineers had already redesigned the product: tamper-evident packaging, plastic seals, foil barriers, a three-step defense system. In the meantime, they offered to exchange returned capsules for tablets, versions that hadn't been touched. Behind the scenes, the company brought in outside crisis experts, PR firms, legal advisors, and even ethicists. The goal was to earn back trust. Tylenol would return, but under a new reality. Every bottle would be suspect until proven sealed. Every brand would face the same fear. And every executive in every boardroom was now watching how Johnson & Johnson responded. They hadn't created the crisis, but they were now the face of it. The headlines faded, the cameras moved on, but one question still cut through the silence: who did it? The killer didn't need to break in, he just had to blend in. While investigators chased theories and ran tests, one question rose to the top: how did he do it without anyone noticing? Security footage was limited. Most drugstores didn't have cameras in 1982. There were no alarmed caps, no tamper-proof seals. A person could walk into a store, pick up a bottle, open it in the aisle, and put it right back. No one would question it. No one did. FBI agents began mapping store layouts. How close were the shelves to the registers? Were there mirrors, angles, blind spots? In some cases, they timed how long it took to open a box, remove the cotton, open the capsules, and reseal it all without drawing attention. The answer? Less than a minute. One agent described it as the perfect low-tech crime. All it took was a bottle, a pocket, and a steady hand. Investigators believe the killer hit multiple stores in a short window. He didn't target chains, he scattered. One bottle at Walgreens, another at a supermarket, a third at an independent pharmacy. All in reach, all in stock, all unsecured. He may have bought some bottles, poisoned them off-site, and returned them later for a refund. Back then, no one checked seals. Retailers didn't keep detailed camera logs. Receipts didn't show who returned what. The trail went cold the second he stepped out the door. Even when they traced every bottle, lot number, and invoice, there was no overlap. No fingerprint, no pattern, no witnesses, just a ghost moving through aisles. The FBI chased dozens of theories. One of the most serious leads pointed to a man named Roger Arnold. He was a dock worker at the Jewel warehouse near Chicago. He had access to cyanide, a criminal history, a temper, and a creepy proximity to the victims. He'd worked with the father of Mary Rayner, one of the 7 who died, and his wife had once been treated at a hospital across the street from the store where Mary bought her Tylenol. Then came the tip. A bar owner told police Arnold had been making threats, talking about poisons, about revenge. Police searched his apartment. They found unregistered firearms, lab glassware, a survivalist book detailing how to make potassium cyanide. But no poison, no Tylenol. There is no physical link to the crime. He was arrested on weapons charges, but never tied to the murders. A year later, he snapped. Still angry that someone had reported him, Arnold tried to confront the bar owner. He misidentified his target, shot and killed a bystander named John Stanisha, a man with no connection to the case. Arnold was sentenced to 30 years for second-degree murder. He served 15, died in 2008. In 2010, his body was exhumed for DNA testing. It didn't match anything from the Tylenol investigation. Disturbing profile, wrong man. Another ridiculous tip led investigators to a book, The Anarchist Cookbook. Published in 1971, it circulated through underground channels, a loose guide to sabotage, how to make explosives, hacking tools, chemical weapons. One chapter showed how to poison over-the-counter medications. The method matched, but the book offered no names, no motive, just instructions. Then came the letter. It arrived at Johnson & Johnson's headquarters, postmarked from Chicago. The author claimed responsibility and demanded $1 million. If you want to stop the killing, it read, wire the money. The tone wasn't frantic. It was calm, calculated, cold. Inside the envelope was a fingerprint. It led to James W. Lewis, a known scam artist with a long criminal record. He was arrested for extortion, but never charged with the murders. No cyanide in his home, no link to the victims. There was no proof he'd ever touched a bottle. He denied everything. Investigators kept digging and arrested a few more hoaxers. One man sent a letter claiming revenge against the pharmaceutical industry. When questioned, he admitted it was fake. He just wanted attention. Another confession arrived in a typed letter. No name, no return address. They traced what they could. The writer was never found. Then came the last known clue. Surveillance footage from a Walgreens in downtown Chicago. It showed flight attendant Paula Prince alive buying Tylenol just hours before she died. Behind her in line, a man in a dark jacket, calm, watching, unidentified. The FBI released the image to the public, asked for help. No one came forward. And that was it. The last frame, the last lead, the closest anyone got. The case didn't collapse, it just stopped. They called it the Tylenol Murders, and that's where it stayed. Someone had turned medicine into a weapon, and whoever it was never got caught. Just silence and a story no one could finish. When the Tylenol Murders ended, they left behind more than fear. They changed the entire industry. Safety, once assumed, became engineered. Public trust had to be rebuilt from the ground up. One seal, one policy, one package at a time. But the legal system wasn't ready, because even after 7 people died, there was no federal law against product tampering, and if the killer had come forward that day, there was nothing to charge him with. That realization came fast. So did the legislation. In 1983, Congress passed the Federal Anti-Tampering Act, making it a federal crime to alter consumer goods. The FDA issued new packaging guidelines, penalties stretched to life in prison. The gap had been closed, but only after it was used. Johnson & Johnson's redesign had already reached stores. The tamper-evident model, shrink bands, foil seals, snap-tight caps became the new standard. Other companies followed. Capsules were quietly phased out. Tablets replaced them. The shift extended far beyond medicine. Seals appeared on mouthwash, peanut butter, shampoo, and soup cans. If it could be opened, it needed to show it, and if it didn't, people wouldn't buy it. The rules didn't change, habits did. Consumers began checking bottles instinctively, shaking them, inspecting wrappers, reading labels twice. That behavior outlived the headlines. Some didn't even know why they started. Inside boardrooms, the Tylenol case became doctrine. Crisis response courses studied it. Business schools taught it. The phrase, "do the right thing," was tied to a nearly collapsed brand. However, investigators had nothing left to study. The case stayed open. No trial, no resolution, no follow-up arrest. What changed was the packaging. What didn't was justice. And long after the story faded from the front page, the habit remained. We twist the cap, we check the seal. We hesitate, just slightly, before we swallow. Some say Johnson & Johnson handled the crisis well. Swift recalls, public transparency, and a new standard for product safety. Others point to the flaw that made it possible. Capsules that opened without tools, and packaging that offered no resistance. The threat was already on the shelf, waiting. The company survived. The product returned. Families were left with memories, not answers. Investigators ran out of leads, and the trail faded. Years later, Johnson & Johnson faced new scandals. Headlines changed, settlements grew. But what happened in 1982 never disappeared. It marked a turning point in how society is defined, as something built on trust but tested by failure. And when it fails, the cost isn't measured in lawsuits or losses, it's measured in lives.